Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode of Should You Pull for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now this week, just after maintenance, we're going to get Ultimate Shiva come around, and with Ultimate Shiva is going to come a draw banner with Serah and her EX weapon, Seifer and Thancred. Now this is one of a few banners coming up over the course of August. It's going to generate a little bit of hype, but the answer as to whether to pull for Serah or not is a little more complicated than usual, as it's going to involve a fair amount of effort on the player themselves as to whether it's worth pulling for her. Now I know that sounds a little complicated, but bear with me. So if you guys want to find out a little bit more about Serah, why I would say something like that, and whether it's worth pulling on this banner or not, stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, don't forget to check all of the social links in the description box below. So that's Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, Discord, Twitch if you want to come and watch me play Dissidia, Opera Omnia and other games as well. Don't forget to check out DissidiaDB.com, as it's my primary resource for all things Opera Omnia, and it's the website that I use for all of my videos, for Should You Pulls, for everything like that. And don't forget to find all of the other content creators out there for Opera Omnia, and there's loads of us out there, and we've all got a really lovely community together, and I encourage you to watch them all. So there's only going to be one EX weapon, one rework this time around, so apart from Serah, there's not an awful lot to talk about on the banner. And we'll start though, however, with Thancred, who ultimately, without his EX weapon, doesn't really do a lot. His EX weapon was released a little while ago and it was amazing when it came out, but without it, he just doesn't do the amount of damage that certain other characters do with just their 15 and 35, and he is very much a victim of EX or bust. You know, he's not like Freya or even Serah to a certain extent, where they don't necessarily, well, Freya at the very least certainly doesn't require an EX to keep up with the rest of the meta at the moment. Thancred just doesn't really do an awful lot. He inflicts poison, which is kind of a theme. Like, the debuffs seem to be a theme across this banner, but he's definitely the weakest at it. He only really does anything to a poisoned character, but him being a super synergy character is going to make your life easier when it comes to farming Shiva, so there is that to bear in mind as a consolation prize when you're pulling for Serah. But as you can see, so Jugulating Wasp and Shadow Fang do extra damage if your opponent is poisoned and inflict poison, but the thing that you're missing when it comes to him is the EX granting an HP attack plus, which he doesn't have unless he has his EX, and because his EX isn't on this banner, he is definitely not a character you're going to be pulling for from it. Now Seifer, like Thancred, does more damage if your opponent is debuffed, but he's got a little bit of a better thing going for him in terms of the damage that he can actually deal, because of things like Bloodfest being an AoE attack, which is really nice. He gets an HP attack plus, Brave attack plus. He's not an amazing character by any stretch, but he does a decent amount of damage for a character that only has a 15 and 35. He'll be quite useful when it comes to farming. If you get his Imperial 35 CP weapon, then Bloodfest will come with a much larger Max Brave debuff, which is really nice, and it will also give him a little bit of an extra one. You also get small attack down from his No Mercy, which is also useful, but the fact that you get a nice AoE attack, you get a group Brave attack plus, which is quite unusual as well. There's just a lot of small niceties that come with Seifer that Thancred doesn't quite have. Are you pulling on this banner for Seifer? No, not in the slightest. If you're not looking for Serah, then honestly, you can steer clear of this banner now, because the two banner mates just don't really cut it up. They're just not up to scratch. But if you get Seifer, you might use him in, say, a Heretic quest or something like that if you've run out of characters you have EXs for. Now the reason that I've glossed over the other two banner mates so far is because Serah is going to take a lot more explaining to give you guys a reason as to whether to pull for her or not. She gets a huge rework through this banner, as well as an EX weapon, and she also comes with a bit of a caveat, is that if you've watched my previous video on the August schedule preview, you'll know what that is, because we're going to need to talk about her artifacts before we actually can recommend whether to pull for her or not, because she is one of the characters that is named one of the Cursed Six, which means that they have artifacts that are additional sort of artifacts that other characters don't really get, that are pretty integral to their gameplay, so we'll come to that in a moment. So looking at Serah's abilities, you have Wound and Moonlight, which, as you can see just looking at the global version of the game as it is right now, aren't really anything special. They inflict minor debuffs, they give a little bit of bravery to the party if you have her 35 or 15 CP weapons, but they don't really do a lot. They do debuffs, so poison, max brave, things like that, but if we go to the Japanese version, which is what we're going to get after her rework happens, you can see that there's quite a dramatic change in the things that she can do. Her wound ability grants her a particular buff called Unwavering Will, which not only raises your party's defense and speed, her own max attack and bravery, and bear in mind that she already raises the max bravery for the party while an enemy is debuffed, so that's a nice aura on top of it, but it also turns her other two abilities into plus versions of themselves. So Wound becomes Wound Plus, which then becomes an AoE attack, which bear in mind that you're doing debuffs while doing these, so any enemy that gets hit by Wound is going to get hit by the debuff, so Max Brave down and Poison, and then you get a splash damage effect. It's similarly to how Freya's Dragon's Breath works, so 100% to the one target, 50% to the splash damage, and then it's also Brave Batterying your allies while she's doing it. So Wound Plus is really quite powerful, and then Moonlight also becomes a AoE Brave HP attack, but this time the damage is split. But there you can have Brave Overflow on this one, and it still raises allies' bravery based on the damage dealt. So, and this one inflicts an attack down to your opponent's party, and then gives an attack up to your party. It's just like a real scale, like momentum swing. So where Lena does these kinds of bits of damage and grants buffs to the party that are more defensively oriented, Serah does so in such a way that it's more offensively oriented. So you get a lot of really nice kind of little buffs, and they all come from an aura mostly as well. So raising your defense and speed without trying, your max bravery while they're debuffed is really nice. You get a lot of really nice stuff. Serah is one of the few characters that I could say has an EX released, but is serviceable, certainly not as good as she could be, but serviceable without an EX. So if you have her 15 and 35, she is fairly usable out the door, but obviously we want to know what that EX does so that we know just how powerful she can really get. So looking at Fairy's Bow, which is her EX weapon, it will give her Ultimate Arrow, which is a 7-hit Brave HP attack to a single target, but it will deal 30% splash damage to all other targets, 50% if you break a target or you're attacking a broken target, 100% if you have the limit break ability of the Ultimate Arrow Spread Up, which is the second limit break, so you'll get the full damage if you hit something broken through Ultima Arrow, but you also get Light of the Goddess, which is a unique debuff, and we all know how much I love my unique debuffs, which lowers the enemy's defense and poisons them on top of the poison you've already dealt them with Wound. So you get a lot out of her EX weapon, because you get much bigger longevity, because despite the fact that she gets a Brave Attack Plus out of her Wound ability, Wound Plus, which is a nice Brave Battery, having a EX with only a slightly slow recast rate, so that gets pretty quick. So you're looking between 2 to 3 turns per cast on this once you've limit broken it fully. You're going to get a massive amount of longevity out of Serah, and she's just going to be reapplying debuffs constantly, framed debuffs no less, that will stack with other characters, and you're still getting buffs out of your party while doing so. Now, Serah does actually have an EX Plus in the JP version of the game at the moment, as you can see here, which will, once fully limit broken, give her a little bit of Brave Overflow and Ultima Arrow, which is a bit of a thing for her, because she doesn't really have much in the way of Brave Overflow on her normal kit, because she's got to have some weaknesses somewhere. She gets an HP attack plus, which is a batterying HP attack, which is quite nice. You start the fight with Unwavering Will, which means you go straight to the plus versions of your abilities. You don't have to use Wound first, which is quite nice. And then you get a slightly bigger Brave Overflow limit once you've fully limit broken it, so around 150%. And then you get Brave Attack Plus Plus and HP Attack Plus Plus, which basically just increases the amount of bravery that your allies are getting. It's not groundbreaking in the JP meta. It's good. It's not as good as some of the ones out there. So Serah's not a character you're likely to go back to once she returns, but she's definitely a nice character to have, and certainly when it rolls back around again, any EX Plus is obviously going to be a bonus. It's going to be better than characters that don't have one. So what is this caveat that I talk about when it comes to pulling for Serah? Why, when she's obviously quite a good character, do I think that she may not be worth pulling for? It's because of the fact that she is one of these Cursed 6 characters, and there are additional artifacts that make or break this character. Now, honestly, it does make a massive difference whether you farm these artifacts or not for Serah, as to whether she's hugely viable or not. She's decent with just her EX weapon. The artifacts are really what you're after. So the ones that you're looking for are going to be the Debuff Attack Boost All and the Moonlight Charge and Boost. So debuff attack boost all raises your party's attack and max bravery by 10% when an enemy is debuffed. She already gets a bit of a max bravery buff to her party when your opponents are debuffed in her plane kit, but having 3 lots of this is going to make it so that you get 30% attack and 30% max bravery on top of everything else you already get, which makes a huge difference because Serah's max bravery is actually quite low. So any boost to her max bravery is going to be really, really helpful to her. And then Moonlight Charge and Boost raises her max bravery by 20% and gives her another use of Moonlight. So again, trying to farm these artifacts so that you get 3 lots of debuff attack boost all, Moonlight Charge and Boost is going to be very, very taxing on any player that's really wanting to use Serah to the best of her ability, because these 2 artifacts just blow everything else out of the water. Attack 108 is serviceable, but max bravery plus 330 doesn't begin to compare to the amount of bravery that she can gain by having Moonlight Charge and Boost and debuff attack boost all. If you want to know more about the mathematics behind why Moonlight Charge and Boost is that much better than Max Brave plus 330, then one of the members of my Discord community, who goes by the name of Ricari, massive shout out to you for working all of this out. Very, very helpful, and it really does invigorate the point that these artifacts are extremely vital to Serah's longevity and viability in the meta. You can have a look at the basic calculations between whether it's worth having plus 330 or Moonlight Charge and Boost, and you can see that there is quite a large difference between the max bravery that she gains, and that's not taking into account the fact that she gets extra uses on her abilities. And then obviously getting extra boosts from the debuff boost all on top of it, you basically have to have 3 copies of the double orange debuff boost all and Moonlight Boost and Charge all at once. Otherwise, it really does hamper Serah's viability as a character, and it's really, really difficult when it comes to recommending Serah to players, because it all depends on how willing you are to really throw yourself into those artifact farms, because it's going to have to be necessary for you to use her to her full potential. She's not bad if you don't do it, but you'll really kick yourself if you get her EX, you get all of her kit, and you don't farm these artifacts. They're so important for her. And then before concluding the video, once again, a massive shout out to Inkwelder and the Tonberry Troop for this lovely infographic we have for Serah. And as you can see, I'm not alone in thinking that Serah is very dependent on her artifacts to really reinforce her viability. And as I stated earlier, her max bravery is quite low, but you can make it a little better with those artifacts. But because she doesn't really have an awful lot of brave overflow in her attacks, she will suffer for that on its own as well. But the amount of buffs, debuffs that she can do across the board while buffing your units is going to make her a really nice foil to Lena, who is similar in functionality to her, but is more defensive, whereas Serah is more offensively related. So characters, as stated here, like Vayne or Zac or Sephiroth, that don't buff their own attack very much, are going to really benefit from Serah, and they're going to really punch some extra damage in there. So do I believe that Serah is worth pulling for? Should you pull on Serah's banner? It's very difficult because I think that she's an extremely good character. Her banner mates are not fantastic. They're really quite lackluster, certainly without an EX weapon, and there's only 1 EX on this banner, which is now a little bit less tantalizing now that we're starting to get double banners and stuff like that. And with characters like Zac and Vayne coming out very, very soon, who are considered very staple characters in a lot of meta situations, it all depends on what you have and what you're willing to go for to get her. So personally, my plan will be, I already have Serah's 15 and 35 CP weapons. If I can farm Shiva effectively enough with just them, which I believe I can, I'm going to go and farm for her artifacts first, and then if I manage to get the perfect artifacts for her, then I will consider pulling for her. Because at that point, I'm not forcing myself into a position where I have to sit there and farm endlessly to get these artifacts before I get her EX weapon, so that I can use her to her full potential. Do I think that she's bad with the EX and not perfect artifacts? Absolutely not. If you're a fan of Serah, absolutely pull for her. She's a really good character. But you also have to bear in mind that, as I said earlier, Lena and Freya also fulfill a similar function to Serah, albeit in a slightly different way. So if you already have Lena, that makes the desirability for Serah a little less. If you only have Freya, I'd say Serah was worth pulling for. If you have Lena and can't be bothered to farm all these artifacts, then no, I don't think that Serah is worth pulling for. And it depends on how big your gem stash is as well, really. Like I said, you're going to have Serah, Vayne, and Zac all out at once, and where your gems go is going to be entirely up to you. But I think no matter where you go, as long as you pick up one of their EX weapons, you're going to be good for a while. So Serah, yeah, I'd say it's a worthwhile banner, provided you're able to put the time in to get those artifacts to make her really strong, because it really does make or break the character as far as I'm concerned. And then there is going to be a period of time, a good 7 or 8 days, where all 3 banners for Zac, Vayne and Serah are all live at the same time, so that you can kind of go for whichever one you like first and then kind of figure out where you want the rest of your resources to go. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope that you guys have gained a bit more information and knowledge about Serah and her banner mates as well, as to whether it's going to inform you as to whether you want to pull for this character or not. If you do pull for Serah, then I wish you all the best of luck. I might give her a little bit more of a chance than I originally was planning to, because I already have enough gems to pity Vayne, who was the prime target for this month, but I'm probably going to wait until all 3 of the characters are live at once and see how it goes. But you're also going to get a lot of resources out of Ultimate Shiva as well, and then Serah's going to help you farm that, whether you get her EX or not. So there is that to bear in mind as well. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to check out all the social media links in the description box below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. Thanks very much again, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!